freight train rolling, bringing truth bombs down the line. Promoting the Southland 1 week at a time. Promoting the Southland 1 week at a time. SCV chat starts now.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 7 o'clock at Federal Standard Time, and you know what that means. It's time for your weekly episode of SCV Chat. I'm guessing Thomas Franklin was not too happy. We'll talk to him in a little bit. But before we get started, the views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are not necessarily those of the SCV, its GEC, any division, brigade, campus, or other subsidiaries, strictly those of us who are expressing them. How's everybody doing this week?
Doing pretty good.
Hey, it's Monday, man. It's Monday.
It really, really is. Good evening to everybody in the chat. See the legend Paul Grambling Jr. in, Jeff Plummer from Delaware, Christian Lee, Michael C. Hardy, see young Jack DuPont from Gainesville down there. Just scrolling through, seeing a lot of familiar faces. Good evening, everybody. Hope y'all are having a great evening. This is going to be a pretty big week for us here on SCV Chat. We've got a couple of extra episodes. Oh, there's the chief, Donnie Kennedy, in there. We got a lot planned for this evening. We've got a special episode coming up on Wednesday, right, Harrison?
Yes.
Our Star Wars episode.
May the Fourth be with you.
Exactly. We're going to be comparing the Galactic Civil War with our own War Between the States. George Lucas was famous for using history in his movies, and we're going to just talk about that. Of course, we've got the National Pilgrimage up at Elm Springs. We'll talk about that some more with the red carpet premiere. But we've got with us this evening, back with us, I guess we didn't scare him off too badly last week, the Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief, Jason Boshears, and Elbow just walked out of there. Good evening to Miss Linda back there. And Commander-in-Chief Larry McCleany Jr. Larry Allen McCleany Jr. If we're going to be formal.
A few days since I've been on here.
Been a bit. How you boys doing?
Well, I'm doing okay. If you give me a point of privilege, I just want to thank everybody for all the well wishes, the prayers, the condolences, and words of support after the loss of my mother a couple of weeks ago. So I really appreciate all my SCV brothers and my sisters of the South. It really was surprising to see the hundreds of messages sent to me in prayer and support. I will say this, anyone that is planning to be in a leadership role, remember there's a lot of sacrifices, both personal, financial, and emotional at times that you have to make. I lost my father about a month after I became Commander-in-Chief, and here I am at the end with about 3 months left. I lost my mother, and about a year ago, my wife lost her father. So let's just say it's been kind of emotional here at the McClooney house the past 2 years. But I really appreciate everybody thinking about us and praying for us, because without y'all, I'd actually have gone crazy. And thank y'all. Love every one of you. You're my brothers and you're my sisters. And I mean that from the heart. So, Brother Jason, you got anything you need to add?
No, sir. And you and your family have been in our prayers. You going through everything that you've been through. I know this has been on a personal basis. This has been a tumultuous 2-year time, and you and your family have been in our prayers. Other than that, I'm fine on this end of it. Just one of those times of the year. It's we've been been staying very busy, going through all of the reunions. Had North Carolina this past weekend. We have the pilgrimage this weekend. Then we've got the Louisiana Division reunion 2 weeks after that. We're starting to wind down with them, and then we have a whole bunch of them the first couple of weeks of June, with all of the Confederate memorial services and the remembrance of Jeff Davis. So it's still a busy time of the year, and still getting ready for national. So,
oh yes, it has been a busy time of the year. April being Confederate Heritage Month, and I see all the time. All the time I see people posting events that they have sponsored or put on for Confederate Memorial Days and so forth. This is our month, and the SCV has really come out strong this year after COVID and so forth. And I'm just glad to see everybody out there remembering their ancestors and carrying out the charge. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And you're right, J-Bo. We've got National Confederate Memorial Service with our pilgrimage to Elm Springs coming up this weekend.
Yep.
And it's going to be a big one. Hopefully, people really turn out. Remember to bring your floral tributes. We are really want to make this a special one, since this will be putting the floral tributes at General Nathan Bedford Forrest's gravesite. So we really want to do this right. We really want to do this right. I know headquarters is getting ready for it. Am I right there, Candyman? Can you hear me? I think his headphones is off.
Well, I know from what I can tell, they've been getting ready for it. He might can tell you if they've got any more merchandise in. We've got some more stuff that's showing up this week with the benches.
Yes.
I know that we had some people out there mowing today. We're going to be out there over the next few days between the weather, getting everything mowed, cleaned up, ready to go.
And I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to seeing all my SCV brothers and sisters of the South. As my kids like to say, this weekend's going to be wild and out. And plus, we got something special going on Friday night. Am I right, J-Bo?
Yes, sir. I would say it's going to be a quite special night on Friday night. You have until midnight tonight to get the tickets. We are talking about the at 3:00. There were 20 tickets. Yeah. Friday, May the 6th. Grounds are going to open around 6:00. People show up earlier than that. That's fine. We'll start at escorting people in. Remember, this is a red carpet event. We're going to have people dressed in period clothing. We're going to have people dressed in, very nice. I understand some people have gone and rented tuxes. This is really going to be a red carpet event. The red carpet will be spread out and you will be walking it. If I remember things correctly, I believe SCV Chat is going to be there on Friday night and recording this and showing it and going live and getting interviews from people as they stroll the red carpet. Go ahead, GCB.
Well, I was going to say, you freaked me out there, Jason, when you said recording it. Recording requires that we go back and edit things and make it look pretty, and we ain't that talented.
We don't do that.
That's why we do everything live. It's raw and in the open.
Okay. All right. So let's scratch the recording piece of it, and let's just go with the fact you'll be broadcasting live. And
That's right.
okay, doing your interviews. You know, it's going to be a great turnout. You know, tonight at midnight's it. If this you have until midnight to get your tickets, and if you don't get your tickets by midnight, that's it. That's it. You know, we've got get all the food ordered, everything planned on with that. So Friday's going to be interesting. Friday night's going to be memorable.
Yeah, my understanding, we got some special guests that's going to be there as well. Can you care to share that with us, J-Bo?
Right now, I'm getting confirmation on who from the Forrest family is going to be there. I'm understanding they're going to be there. The Herman White is going to be there. Or I'm hoping he's going to be there. Everybody remembers Uncle Herman. If you were there at the reburial, you remember Uncle Herman and that beautiful talk that he gave. Ed Phillips is going to be there. A lot of the men that's in the video and a lot of the people that's in the video are going to be there. Commander McClooney plays a critical part in the story. Lee Miller plays a critical part. He's going to be there. Paul Grambling Jr., past commander in chief, he has interview part in it. I'll be there. I say a few words during it. So it's going to be a good turnout. We could have some politicians showing up. If we don't have them there on Friday night, do have word that we're going to have several of them there on Saturday. And it's going to be very nice. We'll be introducing them on Saturday. So this is going to be an important weekend. It's going to be a big weekend. And I want to thank the headquarters staff for all the stuff that they're doing. Matt, have y'all got any merchandising or anything you want to talk about?
We got those new museum hats, but it's been hard to get stuff in. I do have a new T-shirt designed that is going to be the national T-shirt. You know how we had the one with the flag on the back that was waving?
Mm-hmm.
You guys know what I'm talking about with the logo on the front?
Yeah.
That's going to go away, and I'm bringing in something really cool and new. It's being mocked up for me right now. Hopefully, I'll have it by reunion time.
Okay. And then we've got, like I said, we got the benches. 4 of the benches are coming in. That spot that is around the Jeff Davis statue, it will now be full. There'll be no more spots in there for benches. They'll be moved out all over the place. Once we get past this and the new bricks come in, we'll start on the brick and paver project. But Jimmy Hill inside the museum, you've probably seen some of the posts if you're on Facebook. The first piece as you come into the museum on the left, the introductory piece to the museum, that's already on the wall. According to Jimmy Hill, this week, it's either going to be Wednesday or Thursday. We're going to be there. The airlock, where you go out to the Jeff Davis statue, isn't letting entirely too much light in. That has now been limo tinted. It has completely changed the look on the inside of the museum. And actually, the lighting is having to be used to be able to light the museum now. Instead of before, you had enough sunlight coming in that enough residual light was enough. But with this tent on there, and now that piece is done, with that, we're going to take and put our Jimmy's come up with a wonderful idea of putting panels over those over that airlock. So it's he's got some more pieces done. I'm hoping we're going to get those up before this week, before the weekend. I hope that they are. If not, you're going to start to get a real sense of all of our plans and everything that's going. It's progressing. It's moving. And Jimmy Hill has really taken the lead on this museum piece. And he's doing an absolute fantastic job. He's got a great idea. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about something that already has leapt out through social media and is out there. Uh, the design team on this had come up with the idea of having each division choose two people that they want to put on signboards, 2 feet wide, 3 feet tall.
Mhm.
And the states are going to be choosing that. They would be choosing their two people. Now, this is going to be one of those things that it's going to have to be rotated. So when you're not going to say, okay, these are our two guys, and these are our two guys forever. You're not, a museum has to rotate their stuff out. So your first choice, and this hasn't even been officially announced yet. This was just in the talk about it phase. And you know how things do. You have a casual conversation and it just blows up. And everybody's going, hey, we didn't know we could do this and da da da. Well, it hasn't officially been announced yet. It's just one of these things that's in the planning process. You are probably going to have it announced at the national reunion, and you'll be hearing a lot more about it then. It's a going to be an opportunity for each state to choose two people and rotate these two people in and out. Find you two more. These are your first two. 6 months from now, you're going to pick you two more. A year after that, you're going to pick two more. And you're going to get these panels and you're going to write the stories about them and you're going to put them in there. And that way, each state can tell its story of the men who come from their state and the story of their state. That was when Jimmy Hill and I have talked considerable about this. And Jimmy and him and I we've always been in agreement that we can have dusty muskets and rusty sabers, but there's a lot of museums already have that. Let's tell these stories. And this is an opportunity for you to exploit and point out your specific men in your state. So, like I said, this has not been officially announced. It was one of those things that was mentioned and it come out. So, I think that catches everybody up. I'll talk very quickly about Saturday. Friday night, I've already mentioned that.
Before you move on,
Oh, yes, sir.
I encourage everybody to show up this Saturday and see the museum. It has come a long way since we opened up the October after I was elected. I mean, we have a building that has nothing hardly in it, and now artifacts are starting to come in. Exhibits are starting to be set up. I think I got to give my props to Jimmy Hill. I could not think of a better person who has taken the job and ran with it. I have given him pretty much full autonomy, and he is just doing a great job, especially with the small budget that we have given him to work with. My applaud to you, Jimmy. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, and Carl Jones pointed something out that is very true. I said state, it is actually division. Each division is going to be able to choose. And in most cases, each division is a state. But there are instances where a division is made up of several states. But each one is going to have an opportunity to choose. So we'll get this out there, get this done. Just wanted everybody to know that there's a lot of people doing a lot of work on this and trying to get the most bang for the buck and keep our museum moving along.
Yes.
And getting back to Saturday, don't know what the weather's going to be like. Make sure that if it's rainy that if it gets too bad, we'll move from the grave site to inside the museum. If it has been like it has in the past, and stop briefly enough for us to go out and have the memorial service. It's going to be at the grave site of Nathan Bedford Forrest and his wife. Moose, do you mind putting that schedule of events up there?
Yes, sir.
And this is, I'm fixing to post it. It's going to be out there. The grounds are going to the grounds are going to open up at 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, we're going to have Donna Hamilton, who is the Treasurer General for the United Daughters of the Confederacy. She's going to do a great little talk for us. And then at 11 o'clock, we're going to start our memorial service. And it will be like it has been in the past. We will have Jetson Pritchett with the Children of the Confederacy. He will be our keynote speaker. Then you can see the times there for the tours of Elm Springs. Make sure that you bring your own lawn chair, because there's not going to be a place to sit out there unless you want to sit on the ground. Make sure you bring your own lawn chair. Feel free to bring you a cooler. No alcohol. Again, no alcohol. But bring your cooler of water, sweet tea, whatever you need. You need for that. And if you need to, bring you some snacks in case you need to get a little something to eat, and dress weather accordingly. Don't forget to bring the sunblock, because if the rain goes in and the sun comes out, you're going to be sitting on that hillside with the wind blowing and the heat coming down. So, bring your sunblock, dress for the weather, and come out on Saturday and enjoy.
It's a good day for seersucker.
Yes.
Does that mean I get to set a fashion statement and wear my seersucker shorts with my jacket?
No.
I took a hard stand on that quick.
I didn't quite know how to answer that.
I answered it for you. No.
Every now and then somebody throws a question out there and you go, you know what? I don't really need to answer that. You don't need to see my old bird legs in a pair of shorts. Yes. And Adam has put that, and thank you for bringing that up, Adam. At the elm tree, there is, as you know, the place was named Elm Springs because of all the elm trees that marked where the springs were. At 2 o'clock, there is one tree that is left from all of that. It's well over 200 years old, and it is behind the house. And at 2 o'clock, they're going to memorialize and mark that tree as a historic tree. So, yeah.
Hey,
and that's 2 o'clock.
Great things is coming to Elm Springs. Lots of attention. It's just good. It's just good to be a member of the SCV this time, right now, with so much attention coming our way.
Yes.
I'll be making a donation to the museum really quickly. I showed them off last week. I've been thumbing through them, but I just found this. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
It's a receipt for actually, weirdly enough, a Mississippi camp for paying their dues in 1943, back when we were still headquartered in Richmond, when dues were $1 annually. But I've got these several of these books that I'll be bringing up, and because the museum's there to tell not only our ancestor story but our story as well, and stuff like that. I say early, surviving SCV documentation and stuff is something that we do. At least I've got a little bit of a passion on finding and trying to get up there.
Yes.
So.
Thank you there, GCB.
Yeah. Well,
thank you very much.
So there was one question that was sent in with some stars attached to it. John McLeese asked about what about states that have camps but not division strength. Forgive me if I'm stepping on any toes, but I think that's one of those things that the Lieutenant Commander in Chief was alluding to that will be announced at national reunion. The parameters with that, right?
Yes, you're correct on that, GCB. There's been some things that still have to be decided. There is a tendency for the gun to be jumped. There is a tendency for the cart to be put in front of the horse. The news made it out about this, and we just needed to say not everything has been decided or addressed at this point. This is still in the guideline, thinking about it, figuring it out. What's the best way to do it phase right now? And something like this, Mr. McLeese, will be addressed. My desire is it is our museum, and it is to not, my desire is to not exclude anyone, any Confederate that fought for the cause, no matter where the state. They all need to be remembered. They all need to be honored. We just have to figure out the best way to do it. So give us a little bit of time to figure that out, and we'll have more answers hopefully by national reunion.
Which is a good segue point to talk about national reunion coming up. We are in reunion season, as you've mentioned. Folks, send in your information about your reunion so we can get it out there. But also remember, national reunion, we will be trying again to do a daily recap of things here on SCV Chat. So tune in for that. Moose, we got to do it this year. Looking at you, buddy.
Dude, I told you every dadgum night, hey, you want to do it? And one night you legit looked at me and be like, we'll do it in the morning.
Well, it was at midnight when you said that.
No, we were just walking in the hotel.
At midnight.
Hey, I didn't judge the schedule.
After the oratory.
I locally aid the camp. I do what I am told.
That's better.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what it's like when y'all two argue. People have been wondering about that. So there you go. You know, and
I pull him off.
Huh?
Well, I pull him off the stream, and then he goes and makes himself a note to go back on the recording of the episode and find that for the gag reel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I was just looking through some of the comments that some people have been. Ricky Pritchett, he has given out a SCV H.L. Hunley Junior ROTC Award. And let's see, Carl, brother, don't worry about it, about jumping the gun. That ain't, sometimes it's best just to go ahead and get the stuff out there, and get people talking about it, and it'll help maybe get some decisions made, because what John McLeese had to say was an important piece, and we wouldn't have done that. Just sometimes people expect for decisions to already be made, and we haven't made everything yet. But I want to thank everybody that has been on and made comments, and I would really like to see everybody try to be out there. Come to the memorial service this year on this coming weekend. If not, remember, we'll be doing it again next year. Always the first weekend in May, first Saturday in May. This is a process that Commander-in-Chief McClooney and I came up with to give all of our members an opportunity, because with the COVID and everything else going down, everything being shut down, people did not have a place to have a memorial service, or didn't have an opportunity. And you can come here and you can do this. While I'm on that, I know we're starting to come out of the grips of this pandemic. After talking with Eric Priveti, who is over membership, Eric has said that there's approximately 20% of our counts that have not had and that have not met since the pandemic. And you're looking for 2 years now. They lost their places to meet, whether they were in a restaurant or wherever. And some of them have been meeting cemeteries or somewhere like that. But think about 20% of our counts have not had an opportunity to meet and have not met. So, you know, if you've got a place to meet and you've got a good place to meet, be thankful, because there's some people, some camps that don't have that. So, you know, reach out to some of these other camps, start offering them some help, trying to help each other out here. That means that if we've got 20% of our camps and we have nearly 900 camps, do the math.
Yep.
You know, that's a lot of camps and a lot of people that haven't met. And that, that's the reason why we're doing this, to give people an opportunity. If you can't come this year, I know gas prices are well, they are what they are. Thank you, Joe. Way to go, Brandon. So come on out if you can on Saturday. If you can't come here, find one. Go to someone. Go to some memorial service. Go to some dedication. You don't have to come to ours, but don't stay home.
Yes.
Go somewhere.
Don't stay home.
Yeah.
Don't let this make you afraid to go out and honor your ancestors and have an opportunity to fellowship with your brothers and your sisters out there. Look, like I said, these 2 years have been tough for me on an emotional level. But like I said, we're all a band of brothers. We're a band of sisters and brothers. And I love each and every one of you. And I would go crazy if I didn't get a chance to see some of y'all as often as I do. I really appreciate it. I don't think I've seen Jason since March? No,
yes,
March.
Yes. Well, we were at Missouri together. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that's the last time I've seen you, and I miss you, brother.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So,
especially for us, we're seeing each other quite often. Then but we still talk quite a lot. But talking quite a lot, it's just not the same as seeing each other.
Yeah.
So if you can't afford to drive to Elm Springs, you can't afford a hotel room, you can't get that far from home, find you a memorial service out there, because people are doing them. I look them. I'm on Facebook. I see everybody's doing stuff, and thank goodness for the people that are out there doing it. You're doing what you should be doing. Thank goodness for you, and find you one. Don't stay home. Get out of the house and go honor your ancestor.
And if you want to come to something weird, something strange and unique, second annual Chat Head Dinner this Friday night, or not Friday night, excuse me, this Saturday night at the Catfish Campus in Columbia, Tennessee. Remember, it's a pay as you come and eat whatever you want. We'll be giving out awards and all sorts of fun items up there. Come to Catfish Campus, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, Federal Standard Time. We will be broadcasting live. Things get freaky. Mike McMurray does the Moose Knuckle Shuffle. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate that I missed the first one. That was the forest reinterment. I'm not going to miss this one.
This is going to be interesting. Interesting.
It's going to be very interesting. And real quick, for the people who don't know or know how we do anything, since we'll be doing a lot this week, make sure to tune in to our Facebook and see the promote each live event that we have scheduled. I will be scheduling almost all of them today and tomorrow, so you know exactly when to tune in for our coverage of the Red Pilgrimage, the Chat Head Dinner, Star Wars episode, and our rerun episode Thursday.
Okay.
Right. Because look around.
Let me add something to that. He said something very interesting. For those who don't know how we do things, guess what? I don't think we know what we do either. We just make it up as we go.
That's our unofficial. Well, I can't tell our unofficial motto on air. But it's a quote from Bill O'Reilly. Anyway, we're hard pressed for a Pop-Tart break right now. Jason, Larry, we appreciate y'all coming on. We'll be talking to y'all, of course, on Friday night. And if y'all want to come on and talk about Star Wars on Wednesday, you're more than welcome to. Right now, Moose, roll our Pop-Tart break ad.
One thing before you go. Wednesday, May the 4th, is also my birthday.
Oh!
You gotta come on then.
What?
Wednesday, I was born May the 4th. I was born May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you, because
happy early birthday, you little Ewok.
Yeah.
You know, in his case, shouldn't it be may the Schwartz be with him?
All right. I think we need to get off at that point. That kind of ended this conversation.
Spaceballs.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank y'all for
I guess
allowing me to
green-
come on and update everybody.
Y'all have a good night.
Yes, sir.
Good
Y'all
night.
Don't get
Good
too
night.
crazy.
We'll try not.
There is a place nestled in the rolling farmland of southern Middle Tennessee. A home constructed in 1837, nearly lost to the ravages of war. Saved by a servant and a Confederate general. A place where families loved and lost. If walls could talk, what stories could be told? If a place, a home, can feel love, loss, pain, surely this is one of those places. Nearby is a more recent structure, and inside are the stories of heroes and heroines, stories of battles won and lost, stories of sacrifices made by the people of its native soil. A place that will tell the true and complete story of the Southland and the war fought for its freedom. From the causes that led to the conflict to the modern-day struggles to protect Southern history. Historic Elm Springs and the Confederate Museum at Elm Springs are the general headquarters for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. A place where the story of the Southland and its historic struggle is preserved and told. Come and discover your history.
Whoops. Sometimes you get caught chugging water off behind the scenes. Well, anyway, we're here tonight with our favorite guest. Last year, he was the winner of the inaugural Cross Spatulas Award. He's passed national, a lot of things. He's currently serving as AoT Councilman. He's past Alabama Division Commander. Had the pleasure of working with him for 2 years when he was Chief of Heritage Operations, and I was his Deputy Chief of Heritage Promotions. He currently serves propane and propane accessories at Strickland of Coleman County, Alabama. We have the one, the only Carl Jones with us. Good evening, Carl.
How y'all doing, fellas?
What happened with Thomas there at the beginning of the show, man?
That dude, he's high strung, I guess. I've never met him or anything, but I don't know. I kind of came into the backstage, I guess, just right before y'all went on, and he was acting a little screwy backstage, and all of a sudden, I don't know.
Well, we were bringing him on to be your backup expert, but...
Oh, yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that. That's what I wanted, Thomas Franklin backing me up. Getting bold.
Well, you know, well, you know, he is our expert, so anyway. Well, good evening, buddy. So we're going to talk about states' rights, right?
I reckon so.
Well,
what do y'all want to know?
Well, how about we start at the very beginning in the 1700s and move on forward to today?
All right. I can cover that in about 20 minutes. No, I'm kidding. States' rights, Connor and I talked about this, I don't know, a week or so ago. I see it over and over and over and over again. Y'all do too. I know everybody does it. In the modern vernacular and the modern view of things, you'll hear our leftist friends, in quotes, along with really far too many conservatives, so-called, that will make the statement that, well, states' rights is just another It's just another term for slavery. It was the states were fighting for their right to retain slaves. That's a lot of nonsense. When you hear somebody say that, you should automatically know that you are listening to or talking to a person who has put absolutely zero study into what they're telling you, other than maybe reading the opinions of some other body, some other person that doesn't know any more than they do. There's a lot of authors of books out there that, just because they've authored a book doesn't mean that they actually know anything. Bill O'Reilly's a prime example. The guy, in terms of American history, he's dumber than a brick, but he authored books, and so people think he's credible. Well, he's not. And this idea that states' rights is a metaphor or a euphemism for slavery, and that's all it meant is stupid. It's just false.
Well, Carl, these are the same people that a couple years ago were going around eating Tide Pods.
Yeah, y'all have seen my video response to that. I would caution you. They're eating laundry detergent. Come on. But so here's the deal. States' rights. In the post-Lincoln era, which we're still in, we've had two political eras in the history of the United States. You had the Jeffersonian era, which began with the ratification and adoption of the Constitution, which formed the Union, and then that lasted until 1865, in which case the North won, and we entered into the Lincolnian era, which was a rejection of the Jeffersonian era. And in that era, the Pledge of Allegiance is found. The ludicrous idea that we are one nation, indivisible, is sprung forth out of Lincoln's victory. And I made a post today on Facebook, and I think I can make a pretty solid case for this. But every single problem that we have facing us in government today, where government has wrapped its tentacles around every aspect of our lives, has resulted from the centralization of power that came about as a result of Lincoln's victory. It all traces back to Lincoln. My very good friend Mike McMurray, who is now Alabama Division Commander, he made a comment several years ago at a graveside service, and I've never forgotten this. It's always stuck with me, that people today, the generations that exist today, have this idea that that war was 160 years ago. It doesn't affect us today. And Mike said, I would argue that there is no instance in the history of America that affects you more than the outcome of that war. And he was exactly right. It was, it was almost poetic the way he said it, but it was more than poetry. It was truth. It's fact. Everything, the progressive era could not have been built without the breakdown in states' rights and the separation of powers between the states and the general government. And we see from the very beginning of the Constitution, the fact that the Virginia Plan was so soundly rejected. The Virginia Plan came forth calling for the federal appointment of state governors, for high protective tariffs, I think for central banking, for a federal negative over state laws. In other words, they were going to obliterate the sovereignty of the states. Well, this was shredded in convention. It was flatly, absolutely annihilated by the delegates that attended that convention. And what came out was a confederation. Most of our founding generation referred to the Union or the Constitution as a federal or a confederal document. That's the type of union we had set up. One of the biggest mistakes, this is something I want to touch on. I told Connor today I was going to start with the preamble of the Constitution. The preamble is so often misquoted. I maybe shouldn't say misquoted, but it is incompletely quoted. You hear the term, how many of you, I know y'all have all heard it, show of hands. We hear, we the people, we the people, we the people. All right. That is an incomplete statement. That is not the completeness of how the preamble starts. It starts, we the people of the United States. Okay, what is not taught in schools is that the original preamble that came out of committee in Philadelphia said, we the people of Massachusetts, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, so forth and so on. It named each state individually. Well, they had no way of knowing which states would and would not ratify the Constitution. So in other words, they didn't know which states would or would not join the Union. In fact, Rhode Island was so adamant about states' rights that they refused to even send any delegates to Philadelphia. They were against it from the outset. They want to stay with the Articles of Confederation and stay with the arrangement they had. Okay, so we the people of the United States means we the people of whatever state you happen to be living in. Alabama, in my case, Mississippi for Connor, and so forth.
Yeah, and that's one thing our Confederate forefathers later fixed when they wrote the Confederate Constitution.
Yeah, they added, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it said, with people of the United States, each state acting in its own sovereign capacity. There was no distinction in the meaning. The meaning was the same thing in both constitutions. It's just that the Confederates, having learned from the misuse of the United States Constitution, they learned, okay, we better go in and correct this. They likewise in the preamble omitted the term general welfare because that one had also been clouded. But the United States are, not the United States is. The United States is not an is, it's an are. It's a plural, it's plural. Okay, the United States are plural. You can see this, as I often point out, in Article 3 of the Constitution itself, under its definition of treason. It says, treason against the United States shall be found in making war against them or giving aid and comfort to their enemies. It's a them and a their, not an it or an its. And that was the way the founders set forth, what the Union. You can scroll on down to Article 7 of the Constitution, where it says that I believe it was 9 of 13 states, not people, 9 of 13 states would put the Constitution into effect by ratifying it. Okay, you'd have to have 9 states ratify it. James Madison explained, I believe it was in Federalist 39, that a state was its people acting in their highest sovereign capacity. Okay, so it is, when we talk about the states, we're not talking about the legislature of a given state. We're talking about the people of that state. Now, why is all this important? What do states' rights really mean? What it came down to was that you had a great disparity in the various cultures. You got varying cultures in your own state, even to this day. I can travel across the county line from where I live and show you, nuances in the county next door as opposed to the county that I live in. North Alabama and South Alabama, we get along. We're friends, and for the most part, we agree on a lot of things. But there are some slight cultural differences. Well, there are huge cultural differences, especially to this day, but even back then, between South Carolina and Massachusetts. So the only way that the Union could work, the only way that you could bring in a general government and tie these people together was to allow the states to govern their own affairs outside of a few delegated powers that were put in place to the benefit of all. And that's what general welfare means. When they say general welfare, we mean it must be to the general good of all parties to the compact, all parties to the union. Local government is key, and this is one of the things we've lost sight of. We've lost sight of is local government, and I'll use education as an example, as one among many examples. But think about it today. For years, we've had this disagreement between various sections of the country, and ostensibly between the two parties. Although I think that's a misnomer. I think they're two wings of the same bird. But be that as it may, there's been this disagreement as to what should be taught in the public schools. Should we have prayer in the public schools? Should we teach the Bible? Should we teach this version of history, that version of history? Common Core, if we like it, we don't like it. You got all these differences, all these differing opinions. Under the Jeffersonian view, what was taught in the local school would be a reflection of the local values of that community. It wouldn't be dictated from on high by, this all-knowing, all-powerful federal or centralized oligarchy that is sending down these edicts. Well, we want to accomplish this, so you must teach this. That would be out the window. And so states' rights, and that's just that's just one example. There are myriad other things that have been broken down as a result of the erosion of state sovereignty. But you'd have a union of people that were united together for common defense and the purpose of free trade. But otherwise, we would govern ourselves, and that's exactly what the premise of the United States was, what it set out to be coming out of Philadelphia. That's what the states agreed on. And another point, y'all cut me off if you got questions or anything. I'm just, I'll keep going unless you raise a hand or cut me off. But states' rights, the idea of states' rights was never uniquely Southern. It was as much I'm listening what Donnie. Yeah, that's right. What Ron's putting in there. Sorry, I called you Donnie. I meant Ron. I get y'all still. I know y'all for years, still get you confused. But no, that's right. It allowed for harmony because you would govern your own affairs according to your own culture, your own traditions. George Mason said that coming out of Philadelphia. How is one central government going to be sufficient to the governance of people so distinctly different in their manners, habits, and customs? It can't be done. It couldn't be done. And we've been trying that for 160 years now, and you see the effect in prices, or in policies. But states' rights was never a uniquely Southern philosophy. If you read the ratification debates of Massachusetts or New York or any number of northern states, at that time they were concerned that because the population of the southern states was so much greater than that of the North, that the South was going to control things. There was a balance of power that came out of Philadelphia. You had the northern states were more numerous, and therefore they would have the advantage in the Senate. But the southern states were wealthier. They were also more populated, and so they would have the balance of power in the House of Representatives. And so that was one of the great compromises that came out of Philadelphia. But when ratification was in its infancy, when the states were debating this, the northern states were concerned at that time about the southern states using the central government to control them. And so John Lansing and Robert Yates of New York actually got up and walked out of the Philadelphia Convention. And Yates made the comment, Lansing made the comment, had the legislature of the state of New York apprehended that their powers would have been construed to extend to the formation of a national government. We're not a nation. A national government no delegates would have appeared on the part of that state. New plans annihilating the rights of the states can never succeed. That was New York. And by the way, the Constitution passed ratification in New York by a margin of 3 votes. I don't remember what the official count was, but it was by a margin of 3 votes. And overwhelmingly, the predominant argument against the Constitution was that it would erode states' rights. And Hamilton, who was probably, he was a stateless person in a manner of speaking. He grew up in the islands. He didn't really have any cultural connection to any state, although he was a citizen of New York. And, he found himself wanting this Constitution passed. And so he found himself in New York having to argue a states' rights position in an effort to try to get the people of New York to ratify the document and join the Union. And that's where the Federalist Essays come from. That was the purpose of those essays. As far as what actually came out of Philadelphia and what the states actually agreed to, James Madison wrote, and I'm just using one example, there are others, but Federalist 39, on examining the first relation, appears on one hand that the Constitution is to be founded on the assent and ratification of the people of America, given by deputies elected to the special purpose, but on the other, that this assent and ratification is to be given by the people not as individuals composing one entire nation, but as composing the distinct and independent states to which they respectively belong. It is to be the assent and ratification of the several states derived from the supreme authority in each state, the authority of the people themselves. The act, therefore, establishing the Constitution will not be a national but a federal act. We are not a nation. The United States are not a nation. And as adherents to the cause that our ancestors contended for, you and I and all of our fellow SCV members need to take that term out of our language. The United States as a nation, that's a contradiction of what our ancestors contended for. Later on, in 1798, because the arguments commenced as to what the states had ratified, those arguments commenced pretty much as soon as the ink was dry. Hamilton began trying to unsay everything that he had said, and he and John Marshall and later on Joseph Story, Daniel Webster, and various others began trying to rewrite the Constitution through the courts. And this is where the term implied powers, which Lincoln was very fond of, where they came from. I probably told you all this before, but Hamilton had made the comment that you had to read between the lines to find the implied powers. And Thomas Jefferson remarked, "I've read between the lines of the Constitution, and all I found there was blank space." But by 1798, you had a New Englander in the presidency. That was John Adams. He had passed or signed off on, Congress had passed, and he had signed a couple of laws, the Alien Sedition Acts, which were a direct and flagrant assault against the First Amendment. And Madison, who I believe was Secretary of State at that time, Jefferson was Vice President, Madison was Secretary of State, and Madison penned the Virginia Resolution. And he says in here, this assembly does explicitly and preemptively declare that it views the powers of the federal government as resulting from the compact in which the states are parties. The states are parties, not the people. As limited by the plain sense and intention of the institute or the instrument constituting this compact, as no further valid than that they are authorized by the grants enumerated in that compact, and that in case of a deliberate, palpable, and dangerous exercise of other powers not granted by the said compact, the states who are parties thereto have the right and are in duty bound to interpose for arresting the progress of the evil and for maintaining within their respective limits the authorities, rights, and liberties appertaining to them. In other words, to put that in plain English, any power not explicitly delegated to the general government is reserved to the states. The states can start a Social Security program. The states can have a Department of Education. The states, each of them, can have an EPA. They can set their own firearms regulations. They can do any number of things. The federal government is explicitly forbidden. James Wilson of Pennsylvania argued against the implementation of a Bill of Rights on that very premise. He said a Bill of Rights would be redundant because where no power is explicitly delegated, none exists. In other words, if the Constitution doesn't tell the federal government they can do it, then they can't do it.
And aren't there two amendments that within the Bill of Rights that kind of touch into that? I believe it's the 9th and 10th.
The 9th and 10th, and for the record, Thomas Jefferson referred to the 10th Amendment. I'm going to go on memory here. Y'all can look it up and quote, make sure I didn't mangle this too bad, but off the top of my head, the 10th Amendment says that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, or not by the nor prohibited to the states by the Constitution, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. In other words, if it ain't there, you can't do it, period. All right. And Jefferson called that the cornerstone of our constitutional system. That's what we refer to as the separation of powers. You have between the states and the general government, or people confuse these two things. They confuse the checks and balances. Well, the checks and balances exist between the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and the executive branch. The separation of powers exists between the states and those three branches. In other words, the states are the final arbiters. They have the final say on what is or is not constitutional. They did not create a general government and give it the power to decide through its own courts the limits of its own authority. They retained that power themselves, having the ultimate power, the ultimate say-so. Otherwise, the creation would be stronger than the creator. And I've ended a lot of debates by saying you people are trying to tell me that the same generation that seceded from England and then seceded from themselves when they left the Articles of Confederation, then turned around and formed an all-powerful central government from which there was no escape. That's ludicrous. Madison continues in the Virginia Resolution and says, and this is getting into the post-ratification Hamiltonian view and the view that carries right up to this day, and which is also central to the progressive view of government that still haunts us today. But Madison continues to say that a spirit has in sundry instances been manifested by the federal government to enlarge its powers by forced constructions of the constitutional charter, which defines them, and that implications have appeared of a design to expound certain general phrases, which, having been copied from the very limited grant of power in the former Articles of Confederation, were the less liable to be misconstrued, so as to destroy the meaning and effect of the particular enumeration, which necessarily exploits or explains and limits the general phrase. He's referring to the advocacy of implied powers. That's what he's talking about. Hamilton had been floating this, as had Marshall and various others. And he says that these actions were being taken so as to consolidate the states by degree into one sovereignty, the obvious tendency and inevitable consequence of which would be to transform the federal republican system of the United States into an absolute, or at best, a mixed monarchy. Now, dwell on that for a moment, a mixed monarchy. Today, totally outside of the Constitution, you have federal regulatory agencies which have no constitutional authority to even exist, and they are handing down law. On top of that, you've got 545 people at last count, representing 330 million Americans in Congress. And then you have a Supreme Court system that is validating anything and everything they do, and very, very rarely ever overturning any expansion of their powers. It's the very mixed monarchy that Madison was saying the Constitution in written form was intended to prevent. And when you get down to it, you can go into all of the simplistic beliefs that our detractors out there want to level against us about why the South did what they did, why they fought, why they seceded. But at the end of the day, that's what they all boil down to, is that the federal government was usurping power that was never intended to be delegated to it. And it was assuming a position of absolute supremacy over the rights of the states to govern themselves. The term states' rights is nothing more than another way of saying self-government. That's all it is.
Well, I guarantee you the South wouldn't have created a ministry of truth.
I don't want to get y'all banned, so I'm not going to tell you what they would have done to somebody who would have suggested such a thing. So.
Yeah.
I think we all have an idea. So Jason Lloyd asked a question, would the Reconstruction Amendments pretty much destroy any of the rights that were reserved by the states, or to the states, by the 10th Amendment after the war?
That argument can be made, but what you're really keying in on is the 14th Amendment. I would say that the 13th, 14th, and 15th were the first time that an amendment to the Constitution had been made that in any way limited the states rather than the general government. Every other amendment up until that point had been intended to prohibit the authority of the federal government. That's what the Bill of Rights was intended to do. It says that in the preamble. Most people don't even know that there is a preamble to the Bill of Rights, but there is one. And it says in that preamble that the purpose of that bill, of those amendments, were to further prohibit the powers of the federal government. When you get into 13th, 14th, and 15th, those were the first amendments leveled against the states. The one that is problematic out of those three is the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment of it, on its own was, you could, if you go and read the debates of the 39th Congress, which wrote it, essentially, which introduced it, I should say, it's relatively innocuous. The only real aim of it was, or innocuous by, comparatively speaking, I'll put it that way. But the only real aim of it was to codify the 1866 Civil Rights Act into federal legislation, which would, to house it in the Constitution, which would grant or recognize the civil rights of freedmen. But it was recognizing their rights as citizens of the United States. And as they said in those debates in the 39th Congress, it was not touching on their rights as citizens of their respective states. That was up for the states to decide. So even in 1866, when the 14th comes about, they still were not trying to codify in the 14th Amendment, let me put it this way. I'll just quit beating around the bush. The incorporation doctrine is bogus. It did not incorporate the Bill of Rights against the states. That legislation, quote unquote, was not legislation at all. It was another example of the Supreme Court legislating from the bench in 1925. So 59 years later, the federal court magically found within the debates of within the 14th Amendment the power to incorporate the Bill of Rights against the states, further restricting the rights of the states. And from that incorporation doctrine comes essentially Roe versus Wade, the separation of church and state, federal busing mandates, which were a debacle in the late 60s and early 70s. More recently, the striking down of the federal government of marriage laws within a state. And I'll give you one that us conservatives, people on our side, sometimes support, which we shouldn't. And that's striking down of gun laws in certain states. California has a right to regulate the carrying of firearms according to the will of the people of that state. Federal government has no jurisdiction there, but they've applied the supposed bogus incorporation doctrine to give them power over state firearms laws. Nobody that supports state sovereignty should applaud such a thing, because it's the camel's nose under the tent, just like all those other things I mentioned were.
Yeah, and it's one thing that I wish, and I told you I wanted to touch on just a little bit in our call this afternoon, but a lot of people need to realize that the order of the Bill of Rights is reversed. Everybody automatically thinks, well, First Amendment's First Amendment. That's not. It's not put in the order of importance as the founders originally wanted it.
No, they weren't. I don't remember exactly how many recommendations were sent in. It was over 200. I want to say 220 by the states for amendments to the Constitution to further prohibit the powers of the general government. I think it was 220, 228, something like that. But James Madison took those and he broke them down into what became, I believe, 12 amendments. They adopted 10, which we've come to know as the Bill of Rights. One other was adopted, I believe, in 1789 in reaction to the Supreme Court trying to attain too much power. And then the 12th one was eventually ratified like in the 1980s or 1990s. I believe it was 1991, 92, something like that. But you got to remember, Madison was opposed to a Bill of Rights. He was, throughout the Philadelphia Convention, he had argued in favor of a federal negative over state laws, meaning a federal veto over state laws. That was not only, it was unanimously rejected on every attempt that he brought it up in. So he later, when they kept on about a Bill of Rights, and it was pretty clear that the Constitution was not going to be ratified without the promise of a Bill of Rights, but Madison was still opposed to it. So he took these 200 and some odd suggestions and formed them into what became the Bill of Rights. But again, go back to his support of a federal veto over state laws, and you can tell he was not going to be a big fan of the 10th Amendment. So he reversed the order of the amendments. By far, the two most requested amendments were what turned out to be the 9th and 10th Amendments. Had they been put in order of importance to the submitting states, the 10th Amendment would have been the first, the 9th Amendment would have been the second, and everything else would have followed after that. And if you think about how important the 10th Amendment is, with the 10th Amendment and the 9th Amendment, you could really pretty much omit all the others, because what it's saying is, if this power is not expressly or explicitly delegated, then you can't do it. Okay, so that's a pretty broad range of reserved powers to the states, because there's only 18 powers delegated to the general government in the Constitution under Article 1. Did we lose Connor?
Where'd he go?
Running to grab a bottle of water really quickly. I think this is a good time before to take another quick break. Moose, play the second ad really quickly.
All right.
I've always been proud of my Confederate ancestry, but I never pursued becoming a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. It all changed in 2017 when I saw New Orleans take down their Confederate statues. Those monuments come down really lit a fire inside of me, and came to the conclusion I needed to join the Sons of Confederate Veterans. It's a domino effect. We give in on this, it's just a matter of time before they start taking down Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. We need to draw the line in the sand right now. These are our Confederate monuments, these are our Southern heroes, and you're not going to take them down. Our museum is going to be funded 100% by the Sons of Confederate Veterans. The history, the narrative that we present will be the narrative that we write, so it will be our story, our museum. Right now, if we do not protect our heritage and present it as it truly was, it's going to be lost forever. We're going to tell the true story here. I'm Adam Southern, and I'm a proud descendant of Private Alfred D. Southern, a Confederate veteran.
Stop muting me.
You were coughing during the commercial and they could hear it.
That is the first time that it has never automatically muted me during that.
And so I muted you. I was back, man.
Well, thank you. We chose that one so you can see how far along the museum has come. If you've been with us from the top of the show, of course we've got a great weekend at the museum. Carl,
he quit. He's gone.
We're coming back.
Sorry, PP.
Carl.
Hey, sorry, my dog is whining in here, and I'm trying to get somebody to go walk him.
Well, Wyatt just walked in a second ago, him and the girlfriend.
Yeah, I know, and he walked right past my whining dog and didn't think to take him out. So,
I'll swear that boy sometimes.
By the way, if I get tackled out of my chair, it's because Cooper's coming.
Okay. Hey, Wyatt. Bye, Wyatt. We've been wanting him to make a special appearance on the show, and we've done it.
Got him,
Anyway, so where were we?
I don't know. I had to go to the
States'
bathroom.
rights.
Well, to summarize everything that's been said up to this point, the idea that states' rights was all about slavery or all that silliness. No, it wasn't. It was about self-government. One thing I'd point out too, another error since I brought up slavery, and you get caught up a lot of times. You hear the term, well, Alexander Stephens made that speech and blah, blah, blah. And he said the immediate cause of Southern secession was slavery. Well, understand what he's saying when he says the immediate cause. What that means
you're getting confused with the Mississippi Ordinance of Secession.
No, I'm not.
And
no.
Did he say that in the Cornerstone speech?
Yes, he said the immediate cause. The immediate cause was slavery. Well, what that term, Mississippi said something very similar. They said we identify with it, okay? But what Stephens was saying when he used the term immediate cause, that meant there were other causes. There had been numerous other causes. There had been causes of taxes, of tariffs, of the admittance of new states into the Union. William Pinckney made a really good speech if you can find it. I've got a book with the entire speech in there, and it was around the time that Missouri was coming into the Union. And he, the North was trying to force them to come in as a free state. And the Southern delegates were saying, no, they need to determine the issue of slavery for their own, for themselves. And Pinckney made centered a speech around the idea that if the Congress of the United States is going to tell this state on what premise it can enter the Union with regards to slavery, then we're diminishing its equality with the original 13 or the other states. So that was an issue. The North was trying to use admittance into the Union as a means of diluting Southern power. And when you get down to it, that was what states' rights were really centered around. Who had the power? Was it the people at the federal, that were in charge of the federal government, or was it the states themselves? The Constitution is really, it's a very easy thing to understand if you go back and read the history. Now, if you go by just the text of the Constitution, you're going to be you're going to misunderstand some things. That's what we call textualism. You've got, and one of the flaws of the Constitution was that to understand it, you have to go back and read what were they intending by terms like necessary and proper, general welfare, commerce, supremacy, things of that nature. But once you read the history of it, it's a very simple thing to understand. What they were saying was, we've got these various states out there, and by state they meant sovereignties or nations, and we need to unify them for the purpose of common defense and the free flow of goods across the state borders and access to waterways and things of that nature. So let's adopt a constitution and band them together. That was it. There was never any intention of most of the founders, at least outside the Hamiltonians, to bring about this central government that, as James Madison pointed out, would eventually devolve into what we have today, which is a mixed monarchy. We have a Frankenstein form of government, so to speak, in the United States that, it now dictates to us what everything from, what we must teach our children in school, down to how much water your own toilet can flush. It's absurd. And all of that stems out of the crushing underhill of states' rights by Lincoln's armies. Again, as I said earlier, there is no single instance in the history of America that affects you more today than the defeat of the South in 1865.
Well, so one thing, going back to Stevens really quickly, and you taught me this. Stevens, and this is one thing that everybody who's still tuning in needs to understand. Stevens was misquoted in his Cornerstone speech,
right?
Which is an entire episode in and of itself, which we need to do. But
fake news. We can do a whole fake news episode. Fake news in the 1860s.
News about the South.
No kidding. Especially there's one account of Harrison. I found this a couple months ago of people misquoting or taking serious a quote of a newspaper. I believe it's called like the Richmond Punch or something like that, which was the Onion or Babylon Bee of its day. And that's just one thing that we probably need to go and do an episode on. I know we'll talk about it.
Yeah, but in my opinion, pretty much all newspapers are the Babylon Bee or the Onion. They just don't know it.
Well, at least the Onion and Babylon Bee are funny.
Right. Well, at least they're being stupid on purpose. Right. It's intentional.
Right. Now one question I've got, and it's kind of, I bet Ronnie and Donnie, if they're still watching, if they haven't typed it, they're probably wanting this softball question thrown out there. But how do we restore states' rights in this modern Lincolnian era?
Well, I'm gonna back up. Moose has been advertising Rules for Rebels, Ron and Donnie's book, and I agree wholeheartedly to that. I think we also have to recognize that we, as somebody said earlier, we've got the cart pulling the horse, and the the emphasis for as long as I can remember, especially, I think, again, we could do an entire show on how World War II and Franklin Roosevelt and Truman, knocked the country off the rails. But especially going back to that era, which sort of solidified Lincoln's victory, we've had everything in reverse. Today, we're looking for a political savior in the form of an all-powerful imperialistic presidency. We got to elect this guy. He's going to save the country. No, he's not. He's only going to be in there for a maximum of 8 years. And even if you did find that guy that came along and dismantled all these overreaches of the federal government, what's going to happen is, as soon as he's out of office, the establishment is going to get back in there and reapply them. So it's going to be a short-term fix.
Which is exactly what happened.
Sure it is. Well,
that's all they do. Now what we do now, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, but we elect king for 8 years, and the king comes in, he signs a bunch of executive orders, which aren't laws, people, by the way, they're not laws.
Yeah.
And then 8 years later, some other jackwagon comes in and signs a bunch of executive orders undoing the executive orders that the other jackwagon did.
Certainly. And the best example of that is not any president in our lifetimes. I mean, there's every president in my lifetime, and don't shoot me, don't throw tomatoes at me, but all of them have, in one way or another, to one degree or another, expanded the powers of the presidency. All of them. Okay. So if you want a good example of what Matt's talking about, you got to really go back to Grover Cleveland, or maybe Calvin Coolidge or Warren Harding, but at least Coolidge or Harding. But if you go back to Cleveland, he was the first Democrat elected after the war between the states. The guy, this is what I love about him. He was from New York, but he was a Southerner at heart. He made a tour of the South, and my friend Ryan Walters, who's been a guest on this show, y'all had him on with me the first time we did the Constitution episode. He came out with a new book on Cleveland, and it's excellent. I recommend y'all read it. But he talked about how Cleveland had done a tour of the South, and he was really interested in reconciliation and a fair approach and fair equity with Southern representation in Congress. And when he was given an opportunity to go see the Lincoln home, he declined. He didn't want to go. But what I really love about him, in addition to that, was that he vetoed more legislation than all of his predecessors combined, going back to George Washington. Everything that came across his desk that was not in line with the Constitution got vetoed. Everything. The problem, once he was out of office, guess what happened? We went right back to square one, right back to this inverted view of government and the imperial presidency. And it's grown and grown and grown ever since. Cleveland, good a man as he was, turned out to be a hiccup. Harding and Coolidge turned out to be a hiccup. Trump was a much slighter hiccup, because I don't really think Trump tried to cut all that much government. Again, don't throw tomatoes at me. I'm just my opinion. I'm not representing the views of anybody, but that's my view.
Hey, first time we haven't had to say that.
But your point is exactly right, Matt. And so the real way of turning things around is power back in the states. And what we need to be doing is electing, state representatives, state senators, state governors, county commissions, school boards, very important, school boards that see our view of things, that are, are willing to put Alabama first or Mississippi first or Tennessee or Georgia first or what have you. And go back to what James Madison said. He nailed it. I read it earlier. It is the duty. The states are in duty bound to interpose for arresting the progress of evil. So when the federal government comes out with this new Common Core initiative, if your state does not reject that, they are rejecting their own duty. They're not worthy. Those representatives who decline to reject that example or any other of federal overreach, they have shirked their duty. They are shirking their oath of office, and they need to be replaced.
Let me ask you: do you think that the governor of Florida is doing a good job of standing up for states' rights right now?
I think he's doing a better job than any. And look, I don't know all the details. I haven't. This surprises people. I don't watch the news. I don't. I figured out even Fox and all them. I figured out they were fake news 20 years ago, and I turned all that crap off. I read a lot of it on the internet, but the governor of Florida, I'm not going to say he's perfect or he's flawless, but I've liked a lot of what I've seen out of him. I think he's headed in the right direction. I will say this: people have said, "Well, I hope he'll run for president." Well, I hope he doesn't. I don't want him to run for president. He'll be negated. What we need is 30 more governors like that.
Yeah.
The states should be the focus, not the presidency, not the Congress, not the House, not the Senate, not even the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, good God, I don't care who you put up there. They're gonna just boost the powers of the federal government. There's not a single constitutionalist and there's not a single Jeffersonian traditionalist on the court today. There never will be. So forget that crap. And like I said, if you like DeSantis, find another one like him in your state and elect him to governor. We'll get a lot more done that way.
Yeah. Agree.
Remember, this November, don't vote for Carl Jones because he's not running for anything.
That's right.
I would be jailed because somebody would question my integrity, and I would challenge them to a duel.
That you'd outlaw birds.
I think we need more of that. We need more. We need more Jacksons in the White House.
Preston Brooks.
Yeah, no kidding.
You come at me with a gun, I'm going to beat you with a cane.
Preston Brooks is the old adage of sticks and stones may break my bones. Oh, mercy.
But all of this to say, I started telling people years ago, and let me make 2 points real quick. One of them is, look, I don't have any academic credentials. I'm not a professional historian. I don't have any, MBAs or PhDs or any of that. I barely got out of high school. I joined the Marine Corps. All right. And, but I can read. And I like what Clyde Wilson said years ago. It doesn't take academic credentials to discern history. It takes the mental competency of one might expect in a juror. In other words, we can separate fact from fiction. And, my opinions today are the result of me starting some 22 years or so ago, reading factual history, going back to original documents and reading what the men who formed the Union, what they actually said, and ignoring the other opinions of people like Eric Foner and David Barton and Glenn Beck and these other buffoons out there trying to distort what they said. So, there's no magic in learning this stuff. It's just a matter of taking the time to dive into it and to read it. The second point that I would make is something I've been telling people for a long time is that if you want to understand 1861, first go back and understand 1788, because the two are intertwined with one another. The war between the states was a constitutional crisis. It was a cultural war, and it was a constitutional war, well above and beyond any other element of that problem, of that, the schism, as they called it. They were arguing over whose view of the Constitution are we contending for, the one that actually came out of Philadelphia, or the one that this newly more powerful section of the country wants us to abide by. And that fight goes on up to this very day. The progressive era, the modern, unitary state, all of those are the fruits of the South losing. And so, as sons of Confederate veterans, we can take pride, regardless of all of our detractors, regardless of all the other, the nonsense that's hurled at us. We know that our forefathers, our ancestors that went into battle, they were upholding the original principles of the American Union. And because of that, there is no generation that has displayed patriotism more succinctly and more soundly than they did. They were one of the two greatest generations, and the other was the founding fathers, the founding generation.
That's a good point to end it, except for one thing, Casey Weber. I hope you're not talking about getting Glenn Beck to attend an event at Elm Springs, because after what he said about Nathan Bedford Forrest years ago, I don't think he's welcome.
He's talking about Glenn Jacobs, mayor of Knox County, Tennessee.
No. Okay. Good.
So, signing off, or what are we doing?
Well, Matt, you got anything?
Yeah, join us Wednesday night, because dun, 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 dun.
Here we go.
That's right. That's right. We will be comparing the evil Yankee Empire with the evil Galactic Empire.
That's right. So Lincoln would be Palpatine. Yep. And Darth Vader would be.
Yeah, we're Sherman. We're going too far with this. We're going too far. We're giving away the show.
All right. Rear front.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Matt, are we having the look around on Thursday? Because Moose and I will be traveling up during 7. Do we just want to postpone look around?
Yeah, we're gonna postpone it because we got all this stuff going on Friday night. We'll have something Friday night. We'll probably be live all day Saturday. So yeah, it's gonna be a busy weekend. I don't want to overdo it. Don't want to see too much of me.
A lot. There will be a rerun Thursday though.
Yeah, we'll be a rerun Thursday, and also we'll probably be going live Friday during the day while we're at Elm Springs setting up and everything like that. So, if you think that us cancel or postponing one show is going to get you out of seeing us, you're wrong.
There's going to be a lot of stuff we're going to have fun with this week. It's going to be a big week.
Yeah, it is. One thing that I will remind everybody is we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. Guys, episodes like this, which is a really great episode, share them around. Anytime we have Carl on, even though he's is just a literate Marine, got a smile out of him. He has done a lot of research. He is very knowledgeable. This is things that you can send and look up on your own. You can fact check, and heck, if you've got one of those liberal friends that doesn't, or leftist friends rather, that doesn't want to listen to history, send us to them. Let them watch. Remember, guys, we've got you got until midnight to reserve your tickets for the movie night. Y'all need to look at that. Remember that. Get your tickets.
Please.
We're going to end the show with the video promo for the documentary. So we're going to sign off here, and then the video will play. Until next, and then the show will end, and then I'll have supper, and then go to bed, and then tomorrow get a haircut. I think I gave him too much information, but anyway, tune in throughout the week. Check Facebook. Harrison's going to put up that picture we showed earlier of the scheduled events on our page. Check out for the lives. In the words of Harold Philpott, no Fumar in the elevator, and Rudder Frop.
No Fumar in the elevator.
Rare Frop.
Rare Frop.
I was about to say Carl has to do it.
You gotta play the video, goofball.
I am. I was just telling Carl.
What?
Come on.
Okay.
Just play the video.
It started about 3 years ago. A controversy began with the political correct movement that was taking place in Memphis, and Forrest became a lightning rod.
They created a nonprofit group, a puppet organization, went in there in the middle of the night and removed the statue in violation of a number of laws.
Even if the statue got put back up, it wouldn't last a week. Why don't we move on?
There's no one alive today that could tell us where General Forrest and Mrs. Forrest were buried.
As we were digging away the dirt from in front of the statue, we discovered a flower cradle, and it said N.B. Forrest, 1877. We uncovered both the vaults, and they were side by side.
So can you raise it just a little bit more so we can get the scrap? That's good. A little bit more. Recognizing the enormity of the history that's involved with this, I wanted to make sure that it was done right.
This is one of those things that you can't fail on. You can't just halfway do this. You have to be invested. You have to go with it with all your heart and soul.
We're here to remember a hero, not just of the South, but an American warrior. The line is drawn now. This is not just an attack on Confederate or Southern history. It's an attack on American history.